We're back. So, day 99 of using Vinted to sell my old stuff. That got me started in reselling. So, it's balance update today, sales update, plans, breaking news, always breaking news. But first, because I've been on Vinted now for like nearly 100 days tomorrow, so I thought it'd be a really good chance, because I've been on there for 100 days, to basically share the positives and some improvements I think would be good for Vinted. So yeah, we'll do it in that order. Talk about what I've seen as a seller on Vinted, then some improvements that I think will be really good for the platform. Maybe they might see this video and consider them. That'd be cool. Then we do a sales update, balance update, and finish with the breaking news. Do it in that order. So it's going to be like quite a long episode today, I think, but it's Friday, no worries. Let's get into it. So in the 100 days that I've been on Vinted, I've seen so many changes. There's been furniture, sports equipment, collectibles, and new electronics categories added to the Vinted platform, and that's within 100 days. So without a doubt, the platform is constantly growing and constantly getting better. So yeah, if you are, say, getting into reselling or you've got some old stuff to sell, I really think that Vinted is a great platform to be on for selling. And let me have a quick look. What is the founder called? Name to say, but she's called Milda Mitq, and the culture of Vinted, I feel like it's very up to date, and in terms of like being associated with like the digital age, because I enjoy watching like a lot of YouTube videos, and it seems like she's very accessible in terms of she understands the importance of social media. And there's a YouTube guy I like watching called Max Klimenko, who basically stands on ladders, interviews people, and tries to like work out the job. But he's actually done a sit down interview with the co-founder of Vinted, and that in itself speaks volumes for me in the direction the platform is going, because it understands the importance of being on social media and showing the business on platforms like YouTube, and connecting with like influential YouTube accounts. And to see them have that sit down interview, I'll put a link in the description showing that. But it's really interesting, and it, for me, like I said, it shows the culture of Vinted and the direction it's going in. So as a seller, I'm only going to talk today about the positives of me being on Vinted as a seller, not as a buyer. I've been on there for like quite a long time buying. Again, it's a really good platform, but I want the focus to be on the selling aspect, and also some improvements that I really think could improve the platform massively. So as a seller, goes without saying, the audience is massive at the minute, and it's only continuing to get bigger. Like I said, there's been 4 new categories that I can remember that have been added since I started selling on there. So that in itself speaks volumes, but there's also scope for it to get bigger, because right now as a seller, you can only sell to people within the UK. So Vinted or in other European countries. So if at any point they decide that they can merge and we start being able to sell to overseas in the countries where the platform exists, it's only going to improve the business for buyers and sellers. From a listing perspective, I've wrote down it's a massive positive, because again, like, it's always been the same, but even from day one, I've been able to list items within like 2 minutes, which, to say I'm not using like any AI tools or anything like that, is massive again, because there are selling platforms where you can use AI tools, but in my opinion, the moment you outsource it, it's going to cost you more money, and you're not going to gain the knowledge from selling whatever it is you're selling. And the moment you, in my opinion, the moment you start relying on a tool, the moment they start charging you a subscription fee, you'll become reliant on that, because you basically all your worth is in a tool doing the work for you. So the fact that it's still really quick to list from a human perspective on the platform is massive, because even though I'm enjoying what I'm doing, time is money, and if I can list say 20 items in 40 minutes at a rate of like 2 minutes per item, each with a value of £10, it's like it's really good. So that again is another positive. I've only wrote down like 5 positives and 5 improvements. Just keep the video shortish. But next on the positives is like shipping is so easy. The money doesn't come into your bank account, which again is massive, because you're not having to like think about putting the price on the item, because it's basically nothing to do with you. And also it saves a lot of money having the prepaid labels that can be printed out in the store. Say from my eBay business, I've got a label printer, labels get printed off, and I need to consider like the maintenance of the label printer. Sometimes paper gets stuck and it's like a headache for me. What else? I need to buy thermal labels to print out. So the fact that that's again outsourced and nothing to do with me is massive. Granted, sometimes you'll go to the shop, the label printer might not be working for whatever the customer's chosen, but no worries, you can either go back the next day or find another shop and they'll be able to sort that. And yeah, you keep 100% of the money. That might not always be the case on Vinted, but while it's there, it's a massive benefit, because again, whether you're doing this for fun or you're doing it like just to earn an extra bit of cash, or you're doing it as a business, the fact that you don't have to consider in your prices that you list like selling fees and things like that, it just saves so much time. And in, like I said, in a world where like time is money, it's massive. And the final pro that I've wrote down is there's no shop subscriptions, which could also be considered like an area for improvement, just to make the format a little bit better. But again, the fact that there's 0 fees, it's nothing for you to think about. The only fees you could have regarding a shop is like you can bump items up, and I think you can make like shop categories, or they might have removed that feature. I'm not too sure. But like I said, the app, it's been around for a long time in terms of like developing it, from what I've learned from listening to the co-founder, but it's getting bigger and bigger, and I really think that if they continue to make changes, they'll close the gap on their closest competitor. And literally for these guys, if they're taking a percent off the competitor and adding a percentage to them, it's worth like tens of millions. It's not like hundreds of thousands. It's worth like millions and millions of pounds. So yeah, let's get on to the improvements, because I've been on like I really do love business, and again, Vinted's another example of trying to learn how these businesses like get so big. It fascinates me, and granted, it's about like consistency, following change, like looking at what like the culture's doing, society's doing, but they have managed to make a name in a market where it's dominated primarily by eBay. I'm not going to consider Amazon in there, because say for me as a business selling collectibles, I don't have an option to sell on Amazon. From what I know, like it seems like very difficult to be selling boxed action figures from the 90s that have like damage to the box, like little marks here and there, and it seems like a very hard place to be selling. So I consider eBay, for the business that I'm in, top of the game, like they're number one. And then after that, I can only see in the UK, Vinted's like the next one, and year by year it seems like it's closing in on eBay. Yeah, I'd like to share improvements that I think would massively close that gap, or potentially close that gap. So first, I've wrote down here, there's no loyalty, and that goes for like all selling apps that I use. I can't see any loyalty for people that buy on the platform or sell on the platform. And the moment that one of these platforms introduce like a loyalty program, I think it'll close the gap or make the gap bigger. But I've wrote down, so like, if, let's have a look. So I've wrote down here, every X number of sales you get, there should be store credit. So say if you get 100 sales within a year, they should give you store credit to spend, maybe even if it's just £10. By doing that, it's going to benefit the platform, because that £10 will be spent within the store, so they'll get that money coming back anyway. And most people will, especially if they're building a business, they'll reinvest the profit. So if somebody gave me £10 store credit, most likely I'd not spend this on myself. I'd end up spending it on the business, buy something that would either be sold on Vinted or sold on my eBay store, which, if my eBay store is growing, it means that I might be pulling some other items off to sell on Vinted in the future, or it all benefits each other. But I really think a loyalty program where it either gives you store credit for a certain amount of sales, or even like free bumps, every 10 sales you get, offer people a free bump for 7 days, helps the algorithm, gives items more chance of selling, which in turn just helps Vinted out even more. Or, and this is number 3, bit of a curveball, but I've wrote down here like either packaging, or if Vinted could partner up with a business in the UK that offers packaging and offer sellers like discounts on packaging, because something that I see when I do a lot of buying on Vinted is most of the people I'm buying from don't have the resources to like pack well, pack quick. They don't necessarily even know how to pack items safely. So you can see a massive difference from, say, like the shipping companies that have partnered up with Vinted. They've grown like massively, like huge. Like every now it's a simple little thing, but you can see the label printers have evolved over the years, and they're getting better and better and better, and that's because they're earning more money than ever, and so they're just streamlining their system to make it so much more efficient, which will only make their profits bigger and bigger. So I honestly think there's a massive market for Vinted partnering up with a UK supplier of packaging to make that system better and make the shipping better, reduce returns, improve the experience. And even if you're buying items that are packed better, it just sets a better tone for the platform, because I am still to this day, like, I'm reluctant to say spend like £500 on collectibles on Vinted, just because there's a possibility that they could end up turning up in just like a plastic jiffy bag, like, and you don't want that. Whereas for me, say like comparing to eBay, there's a lot more accountability if a person packs an item bad and it gets broken, whereas it is a little bit more of like a war zone on Vinted. But yeah, I honestly think the packaging will be a massive one, and there'd be so many UK businesses that would want to get a contract with Vinted, because they've seen the explosion of like the shipping companies in post, every yodel, they're all growing, and it is massively thanks to what Vinted are doing. But yeah, so what else have I wrote down? So from a seller's perspective, I think it would be better. An improvement would be if I could move items around my store, because if you've got too many items in your store, a customer will come, and unless they've searched it, they're not going to scroll through 1,000 items on your store. So I've wrote down here, and this would be so easy to do, but give sellers the power to like show list their store in certain ways and maybe like lock it in for 7 days so it's not constantly changing. But like, say 1 week I could list my items so it shows it from like prices high to low. Another week you could list it oldest listings first, because if you're a new customer going into the store, unless you select the listing and see how long it's been on the store, they don't care. As they're scrolling through your store, they'll just be looking through and, oh, I like that. So again, I think it gives it more potential to get turnover on your older items. And then saying that right now they've got like the newest listings first, keep that, no worries. Maybe do a mixed one where Vinted just like the algorithm decide and just throw a random order out there, alphabetical, whatever. But again, I think they'd all be like just simple things, and it just help sellers maybe move some of their older stuff on. And then last, I've just wrote down a bulk edit tool. So on eBay, I use it all the time, whether it's to like put prices up, put prices down, send offers out. But a bulk edit tool on Vinted would be massive, where you can just select all and maybe just say send 10% offers out, or bulk edit tool, knock all prices down 5%. Super simple, and yeah, I think they've been massively effective, and it just result in more sales, which benefits the platform because it'll keep sellers on there, it'll keep people buying, and just make them more money basically. But no doubt, I've wrote down here like the Vinted will have so many ideas going forward, and they might never see this video, but the fact that like the co-founder has interviews with people on say YouTube and things like that shows to me that they're aware, and they'll be doing market research all the time on channels like this to see what people are saying from like a buying perspective, a selling perspective, and they're never going to implement like 10 changes all at once. They'll always do a change, see how it goes for 90 days, and then like basically probably maybe implement more changes from that or reverse it. But they'll never make changes across the board because they wouldn't be able to manage it. But they're just like some improvements that I really think would improve the platform. And I've wrote down here because the platform is decent. When I've finished selling my personal stuff, I'm probably going to flick over to being a pro seller. I don't really know how it works, but like if you're a pro seller, let me know what are like some pros and cons, or like even improvements to that. And even on like these improvements I've suggested, like, do you think they're good, or would they work, would they not work? What would be your improvements if you could like suggest anything to the platform that would make it better for them and sellers and buyers? Let me know. But yeah, we'll get into it. So time for sales now. We've had some decent sales. We'll start with the eBay because I've basically, if you're new, I've been selling all my old stuff on Vinted because it's no longer sat on any selling platform. And come April, I want to move unit, get a bigger unit so that I can do all my work in one place. Because at the minute, I bring it home, then I go to the unit, pack it, it comes back here where I print labels off, then I take it down to the post office. But when we're talking about streamlining, like the most effective way I can get better is by having just one space to do all my work in one place. It'd be massive. So yeah, been selling on Vinted, and then I had, let's call it an epiphany, whatever, but the money that's been building up, I've been putting it into like a separate pot in my bank account. But instead of doing that, I've started reinvesting that money and buying collectibles that are basically going in the direction I want my collectibles business to go in. And so the money that I've been reinvesting with the Vinted balance has basically been topping up the bank account quicker. So we've had some decent sales on eBay. We had a Bradford football pennant go, that went for 20 quid. And then we had an international buyer who bought 3 football pennants, that went for £71.50. So happy days. I said to you at the start of the week, Tuesday, we had to make about 240 quid. And considering last week we only made 90 quid on Vinted, it wasn't looking very good. However, Vinted this week has been really good to us. I'll go on there and I'll show you what sales we've had. Let's go on my orders. So, since speaking to you last, we had 2 figures go for £19. Since then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Since then, we've had 7 sales, and yeah, it's helped us out. If we've hit the target was always to be at 2,000 by day 99. Because day 50 it took 50 days to get to 1,000. And so we want to always be trying to take one day off every time. And by doing that, we're just chipping away until maybe we get to a position where every day you make 1,000, or every 7 days you make 1,000, whatever. But for now, we just try and take a day off. So since then, since the 2 figures for 19 quid, we had a WWE belt go for £9. 5 figures go for £3.25. Army of Darkness action figure go for 20 quid. Some women's blouse top, that went for £1, but pennies make pounds, what the pounds make. Another wrestling belt went for 9 quid. Then we had some 3 Disney toys go for £6. A WWE top went for £3. And then we also had last night a wrestling figure go for £14.50. So some decent sales. I was constantly keeping the shop listings updated because I only want to, at the minute, I only want to have a maximum of like 99 items on my store, just because, like I said, it's hard to navigate through the store. So I think 99 is a fair number. Keep it at that, and it's easy for shoppers to like get to the bottom of my listings if they see anything they want that's older. But yeah, I've been constantly topping it up, and I think that's helped the sales. So let's get the piggy up. Is it piggy time? Yeah, let's get the pig up. So last time we spoke, last Friday, we was on. Last time we spoke, we were on £1,760.42, and a massive reason for this jumping up is thanks to the eBay, and buying collectibles that are going in the direction the store is going in. But the only reason the eBay has done well is thanks to what the Vinted is doing, because if the Vinted sales stop, it means there's no money to reinvest in the business from the Vinted stuff. So yeah, they're both benefiting each other massively. But as of today, thanks to the Vinted and the eBay working for us, we're now at £2,032.59. So it was late and great, but we've hit the target. I did think it wasn't going to be reached, because 240 quid based on like my old stuff was a big ask, but we've ended up like doing 270 quid, which, yeah, happy days, not too bad. And that effectively means, again, we're at the start of a new period where we're going to try and make £1,000 quicker than it's taken this time. So by day 146, I want to be at £3,000 in the Vinted pot balance, and that means instead of leaving that £2,000 in the Vinted pot balance, I have to be spending that, because I've seen the benefits of reinvesting, buying the collectibles that I want, and building the store in the direction I want it to go, which is why breaking news yesterday, what day was it? Let's see. It was either on Tuesday or Wednesday, but already I've been in contact with like a collector. Collectors are the best people to buy from because they understand like both sides of the game. Collectors want like collectibles at a fair price, whether they're buying it as like investments because they enjoy them, to use them, whatever the reason is. They understand that side of the game. And that being said, when they're ready to sell their collectibles, they understand that if they're selling it in a big bundle, that collectible companies like myself, we want to, we might keep some of them, but primarily we want to be able to make money so we can keep doing this every single day. And every single day that I keep getting to do this, very grateful. So being in contact with a collector, and already I've spent £1,230, 68 pence, and I'm confident that we can return that money. It'd be a big ask to return it in 40 odd days, but within a year I'll get that money back, no worries. But yeah, some decent money spent, and yeah, look forward to showing you that when it comes. But big thing here is with it, the 2000 mark by day 99, and day 146 will be the 3000. Next update Tuesday. Hopefully there's some good sales to tell you about. See you in a bit.